cognitive distortions. You've probably heard of cognitive behavioral therapy, and the basis of that is these distortions that we do. Filtering is magnifying negative details while you take out all the positives in a situation. And the truth is that this is the basic function of what happens to you when you become depressed. It's like you put on a set of glasses that magnify all the obstacles, and they get so big that you can't even see around them to see possibilities. But filtering is you can take a situation and all you see is what's bad about it. You don't even notice the parts that are positive, even though they're there. There's always good and bad in everything. You know, the silver lining in the cloud, there's a reason that's a saying. Polarization, this is one we used to call black and white thinking, all or nothing, perfect or failed. There's no middle, there's no gray. A lot of people have this thinking, and it's extraordinarily anxiety provoking, because what am I going to do if I think I have to do something? I've either got it all right or I've completely failed. That, of course, you're going to be anxious. There's no such thing. I prefer to do an ROI. That's a return on investment.
Mm-hmm.
So I take a look at my project and I figure out like a grade. Okay, what grade do I have to have? I have to have an A. Okay, an A is 90. So I don't have to get a 97 or a 98 or a 90. I only need a 90. And the amount of work that you have to do to get from a 90 to a 99 is extraordinary. So I'm not doing that work. I'm doing 90% work. And that's perfect for me because that's what I need. I don't have to do 99. I don't have to get 100 because I don't need it. Rarely ever are you going to see something that needs the effort of a 99 or 100. It's good enough. It's what I need for now. And instead of thinking about it all or nothing, it's good enough is really a more reasonable way to assess what you need to do.
I think this is a favorite kid thing as well. Everybody's everybody's got them. I won't be cool if I don't get this. Life will be over.
And it feels that way to them in the moment.
Yeah.
It does. Overgeneralization, drawing conclusions without sufficient evidence. This is very, very popular in arguments. You always, or you never. As soon as you say either one of those words, the other person stops listening and starts looking for the exception to prove you wrong. So just take those words out of your vocabulary because they're not going to be true. Nobody does anything always, and nobody is never whatever. It just doesn't work that way. So just don't use those words. Your whole life will be better. All teenagers think this. All teenagers are lazy. All children are this. No, all isn't going to be true. None isn't going to be true. It just isn't. Those are overgeneralizations. Jumping to conclusions. This is when we know what other people are thinking and feeling. Oh, well, you believe this and you think this and you feel that. I don't know any of that. But I act as if I know it, and then I act as if I know it, and I start treating you the way that you feel and all that. And it's crazy making. And it's based on no evidence whatsoever, except that we think we know somebody, and we actually believe that we can get into the mind of another person, which is ridiculous. If you think about it, you look at a color, that's especially, you can see it. Let's look at this. Oop, I have a fake background, so it's invisible. There it is.
You go.
This is white. I think this is white. This appears to be white. I think we'll all agree that this is white. But I have no idea what you experience when you see white. No idea what you're experiencing when you see it. We've all agreed that we're going to call this frequency of light reflected white, but nobody knows what white looks like to anybody else. Nobody does. And you need to remember that, because you don't know what's going on inside of anyone else's head. And if you can become more tentative and more curious when you're talking and interacting with people, especially people really close to you, and you check it out before you assume you know, your life will go much better. And so will theirs. You'll have fewer arguments because you don't know what other people are thinking or feeling.
But you can sometimes have a general idea, especially if it's a spouse or a partner.
You can speculate, but it's always speculation. If I have a lot of experience with you, my speculation is going to be right frequently, but it's still speculation. It is not fact until you verify it, until you tell me it's correct, because nobody knows how I feel better than I do. Nobody does.
And those feelings change from moment to moment to moment, depending on what's going on.
Absolutely. Catastrophizing is assuming the worst possible outcome, always anticipating the worst. Oh, well, you know what's going to happen. Oh my God, it's going to start to rain just because I got my car washed, just because I got my hair done, it's going to start to rain, whatever. Yeah. Why do we have to assume the worst? Why can't we assume the best? Or why can't we just be neutral? Say, whatever comes, I will adapt to it, because that's what I do. That's my superpower. Personalization. Thinking that everything that happens is in reaction to us. When you were a toddler, it was appropriate and normal for you to think that everything in the world happened because of you. But we're supposed to grow out of that. We're not that important. I'm sorry, but you aren't that important. Everything in the world doesn't have anything to do with you. You're just not that important. And, you know, oh, I invited so-and-so to come over, and if I hadn't invited her, she wouldn't have had that car wreck. Okay. All right. That's somewhere in the vicinity of magical thinking. Or just taking everything personal. Control fallacies. Some people believe in external control and they're helpless victims of fate. Oh, well, I can't do anything. I'm helpless. Internal. They're responsible for absolutely everything. If I drop the ball, the entire universe will collapse. Whoa. Oh, that's terrible. That's an awful place to live. I used to live there. Oh, it's really bad. Being responsible for things you have no control over is really, really painful. I hope you're not there. Thinking the world is going to be fair. Oh my goodness, we should not tell kindergartners that the world is fair or that people are going to play fair. That is just not true. The world is not fair. You get good, you get bad. It doesn't have anything to do with fair. Fair is where you go to see the pigs. One of my clients told me that once. Fair is where you go to see the pigs. Okay. That's about it. Assuming that it should be fair is just living in a fantasy world, because there isn't anything fair. That is not a measure of the world. Blaming. When I put the responsibility for whatever's happening to me on other people, I'm giving up my own personal responsibility, but also thinking that I can't be master of what happens to me. I'm the victim of what everyone else does. And that is a completely depowerizing, the opposite of empowering. It takes all of your power and hands it to someone else. When I used to do consulting for production and inventory companies, we were talking about back in the day when we were first starting to do quality control. And the Japanese were beating our butts, that we were not doing well at all in comparison to them. And all of their things were coming out with much higher quality than ours. And what they did is they go around and they look for what's wrong with the process. Why did this happen? What happened in the process? What's going on? How do we change the process so this mistake won't happen again? And in America, we're running around like a bunch of owls going, who did this? Who did this? Who did this? As soon as I find somebody to point at, I don't have to worry about it anymore. I don't fix my process and it just keeps happening. So we had to switch from this blaming, this looking for somebody to blame so that it's over and I don't have to think about it anymore. That is not an ideal way to live. You need to fix processes so that whatever's happening stops happening. Shoulds. Stop shoulding on yourself. If you say, I should do XYZ, I can promise you that you are not doing it. And if you're not doing it, you really need to assess whose rule it is. Who says you have to do that? Do you actually believe it? If you actually believe it, then you need to do it. And if you don't believe it, you need to get rid of it because you're just making yourself feel guilt and shame and worry and anger and resentment over something that you don't even endorse. Shoulds are something that have to go away, but they require a bit of analysis before you can let them go. Emotional reasoning. Believing that what I feel about myself and others and situations is fact. Just because I have an emotional reaction about something doesn't mean that that's a fact about it. I can think that something is very, very scary, but maybe it isn't actually threatening. I need to be able to use logical reasoning, not emotional reasoning. Is it true? Is that a fact? Those are the questions that we look for. Fallacy of change. Thinking people will change if we pressure or cajole them enough. My experience is that the more pressure applied, the more resistance you will encounter. And you can't flatter somebody into doing something because they'll see it coming, which they will perceive as more pressure. So it isn't going to happen. All you can do is see if they want to change and then ask if there's anything you can do to help them change. You can't make anybody change. You can't even make yourself change, by the way. Global labeling, that's a whole lot like overgeneralizing. It's very similar. I'm not even sure why there are two different ones here. We generalize one or two qualities into a negative global, all teenagers X, all women, all men, all whatever. Always being right. Always feeling like you're on trial to prove that you're right. That whatever your opinion is right, that whatever you did was right. So you run around constantly justifying everything you do, and you're very defensive. You don't have to be right. It's okay. Nobody needs to be right. If you're not trying some things that you don't get right, then you're not learning anything new. And we don't have, if you find yourself justifying a lot, you have to dig in and see, okay, now wait a minute. I must have a lot of doubt around this or I wouldn't be justifying. Heaven's reward. We expect our sacrifice and self-denial to pay off exactly as we expect. Oh my gosh, I gave up this for you and I gave up that for you and I gave up that for you. And now you're going to leave me. I didn't ask you to sacrifice yourself. I didn't ask you for that self-denial. If you did that, you better get the reward from it intrinsically, because I'm not going to, no. Sacrifice and self-denial rarely work if they've got strings attached. They just don't. So this is a lot. This is a whole lot of material. Like I said, it's the basis of cognitive behavioral therapy, and you just got it all in a 5-minute force feeding.